Welcome to Straight Talk. I'm Peter Martin. I'm delighted to say my guest is actor, comedian, writer, Jonathan Watson. Johnny, it's an absolute joy to get you in here, and I'm going to start by massaging your ego on the basis that some people will look and say, there's Jonathan Watson, and it's only an excuse. For me, there are so many more areas of your talent that take you through comedy, into movies, acting, one-man shows. Do you feel blessed that you were able to use so many of your talents and get so many work in different areas?
Well, I feel very, very lucky and privileged to have the career I've had so far. It's very kind of you to say all these things and mentioning the likes of Only an Excuse, which I love doing, and I'm still good friends with Philip Differ, whose idea it was to get the programme up and running. But I feel very lucky to do all the things that I've done. So
yeah, and strangely enough, though, I looked at it and I thought to myself, well, you don't do that many things without being committed. To have the talent to do it, and for people to recognise that you're able to change from maybe doing a comedy sketch to suddenly, doing a movie, which is, difficult and dark. And I'm going to touch on one of the movies that I saw you in that I thought, bloody hell, how the hell did they transform himself for that? You know what I'm talking about. But you don't do that without people recognising your talent. Was it always something that you wanted to do from an early age, or were you like so many people, mums and dads, saying, "Listen, be a joiner"?
No, it was. It all happened. Well, it's like anything else with these things. It's just an event. Something happens, and the thing that started it for me was when I was about 10 years old. My dad came in one night and he said, "Listen," he said, there's a junior course at the Royal Scottish Academy of Music and Drama, College of Drama. Do you fancy giving it a go?" It was a Saturday morning thing. It was a Saturday morning and a Wednesday after school for about an hour. And I was an only child, so I think my dad was always keen to sort of look for things to get me involved in. And he said, do you want to, give it a go? And I said, yeah, I'll try it. And I went along and I loved it. It was great. It was quite a weird setup in that it was so diverse. I mean, there was kids there. You'd think it'd be quite a middle class thing. Yeah. But it wasn't. There was kids for Possil, there was kids for Newton Mearns, Whitecraig, Springburn, the Gorbals. Alex Norton, actually, who I worked with in Two Doors Down. Alex used to attend it. And he was from the Gorbals. He's a wee bit older than me, so he had just left by the time I started. Yeah. But I used to go along to that on a Saturday morning. And what used to happen is if the BBC were casting anything that required kids, they would come along and they'd sit up the back. And if they thought, you may be able to do a job, they would get you to read. And I was quite fortunate. After about a year being there, I picked up a really good part in a thing called the Wednesday Play. For your older members of the audience, remember that was the forerunner for Play for Today. Yeah. And I got a really good part in that. And what was, believe it or not, I now feel ancient, it was the very first coloured drama to come out of BBC Scotland. Wow. So I got that and it went out and it went well. And after that, I got a load of work as a kid. So
how did that get down in the environment you were brought up in with your mates?
It was okay actually. Yeah. It was all right. Yeah, but they were quite chuffed for me, and I didn't make a big deal about it or anything like that. So everybody was fine about it. They were very pleased for me. So it was good. Yeah.
And did your mum and dad, were they happy that suddenly they could see a pathway for you?
Well, at that point, it really wasn't a pathway to a career. It was just it was almost like a hobby. And they were chuffed to bits, but they weren't pushy in any form. And there was nobody in our family that had any kind of experience in that area, Yeah. And so they were sort of proud parents, and that was it. But I had no intention. I mean, I did an awful lot of work up until when my voice broke, basically. And I worked with some wonderful people. Did Dr. Finlay's case book, loads of these. I did, I did 2 of these, not loads of these. But I did one, the one that I did, which was a really good part, that was the episode that, believe it or not, launched the career of Hannah Gordon.
Wow.
She had a big part in it. And also I remember there was a woman playing my grandmother in it. And she was fantastic. And I remember going up and wishing her good luck before we did the studio. And one of the other actors said, she said, that old lady there, she's very, very famous. And she was a woman called Kathleen Nesbitt. Right? And the next time I encountered her name was when I was a wee bit older, reading The Moon's a Balloon by David Niven, when he's talking about his time in Hollywood and all that. Great stories.
Yeah.
And she was part of that set in Hollywood.
Wow.
And you would probably remember her from, she was the old lady that played the heroin addict in French Connection 2 with Gene Hackman.
Bloody hell.
Yeah.
Do you know the funny thing is? I mean, you've it's a good start. You've fired in a couple of right name drops, right?
Sorry to apologise.
No, you don't need to apologise, because the reason the next point I'm going to make to you is, you said there, I feel lucky, and I put it down to the talent. But when I looked at the whole resume and the movies, the TV shows, the radio shows, and then I looked at all the people that you'd worked with, and then I looked at the shows and the shows that you were doing and the work and the body of work that you did, and I thought, and I'm thinking to myself, typical Scottish, I thought, bloody hell, if Jonathan jumped out a window and got up the way, it's just a fantastic life of good programmes that, I mean, a lot of the stuff you did, Jonathan, was critically acclaimed. It was liked by a lot of people, and you worked with a lot of really good actors.
Well, that's the thing, the programmes that have enjoyed success, the reason that they have, it's not because of me, it's because of the whole setup within the likes of my early comedy stuff. Colin Gilbert was in charge of all that, who was absolutely brilliant. I mean, that's Philip learnt under Colin as well.
Yeah.
And he was responsible for Naked Radio, Naked Video, Rabsy Nesbitt, encouraging Philip to go for the likes of Only an Excuse and all that kind of stuff. He was a fantastic person to learn from.
Yeah.
And not only him, but the crews and production team and the writers that he assembled.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because it reminded me of a book I read, Don't Shoot, It's Only Me. It was Bob Hope.
Oh,
and basically he said, doing vaudeville is one thing, but when you get to Hollywood, he says, I made sure I had the 7 best writers.
Right,
so that he could actually then deliver the quality of work. And when I look at the quality of people, as you said, I'm glad you highlighted that team behind you. It still has to have your talent to deliver it.
No, but the thing is, see, if you don't have the writers in place, the script in place, it doesn't matter, how good you are, how good you think you are. You're 2-0 down before a ball's been kicked.
Yeah.
You need to have that in place. And
what's the difference then? Were you lucky enough to see something and spot that it was really good, or did you just get to the situation where you were on that roller coaster and going through, and people were opening doors, and you thought, "Great, I'll go on it."
It was really when I go back to Colin Gilbert, who built up a fantastic team of writers in the comedy unit when it was in BBC Scotland, and we were also his little rep company. So that's why I was so fortunate enough to work with the likes of Ian Pattison, Philip Differ, Bob Black, people like that. That's how I was able to get into it that way,
Brilliant. I'm going to talk about the individual things and the people you work with and the shows, but let me take you back then to being a kid. What was it like growing up?
I had a great time growing up. I was brought up in St George's Cross, just at the foot of Maryhill Road, and not all that, 10-minute walk to Firhill, where I saw my first football match. I had a very happy upbringing.
Was your dad a Rangers fan? Because everybody goes, Jonathan Watson, Rangers fan. And You know, and I think to myself, he's much, much more than that. But you must have had was there a point where your dad said, I'm going to take you to Ibrox?
No, not at all. My dad wasn't a football fan at all.
Wow.
I mean, the family are all sort of Rangers fans, but my dad, despite being brought up in Lark Hall, he was not a football fan. He was. I tell you, you'll remember this. He actually went to school with Jim Steele. Remember the guy that was the Celtic in Scotland masseur?
Yeah.
He went to school with Jim Steele. So I remember meeting Jim Steele in West Regent Street with my dad when I was a wee boy. The two of them were chatting away about, but they were at primary school together. But my dad wasn't a football fan. My grandfather, however, was a Scottish junior internationalist and played with a lot of the big sort of junior teams in this area, round about this area at the time, like Royal Albert and Lark Hall and all that. Right. And but my dad wasn't a football fan.
How did you get into Rangers?
Well, my pals were all Rangers fans, and that was the way into it. And my favourite player was Davy Wilson.
Right.
Yeah, wow. That was, and I remember I was thinking this the other day actually. I remember, and I got the opportunity, as you know, Davy passed away recently, but I got the opportunity to tell him this. But I used to get shipped out to Kilbarcon in the summer holidays. My grandmother from my mother's side stayed there, and I used to be shipped out there. I remember one day my cousin Freddie said, you know that Davy Wilson stays in Kilbarcon? Yeah. I went, really? So we went into my grand's, got out a bit of Basildon Bond paper, blue paper, and trekked the length of Kilbarcon down to the War Memorial. And his house was in the street behind the War Memorial. And I always remember it had a big pigeon ducat called the Left Wing. And I rang the doorbell, and he came to the door, an old jumper on. He says, what is this, son? I said, can I have your autograph? He says, sure. And he signed it, Davy Wilson, Rangers FC. Right. And a few days later, I was obviously over the moon. Yeah. A few days later, he signed for Dundee United. So I remember got one of the last ones at Rangers FC, but I told him that story. And so he was my favourite player at that time. Yeah.
Is there a game that sticks in your mind that you think, oh, never forget it?
Oh, I've got loads. I think that one of the things that I really enjoyed, again, I was thinking back on the game. I've been to some great games. I've been Rangers Marseille in Marseille, which was the best. I've been to loads of Scotland games where they managed to beat England at Hampden. Just there's about 110,000 there. But my first Rangers game, it wasn't my first football game. My first Rangers game, my dad took me to the semi-final second leg against Slavia Sofia, the year they got the Cup Winners' Cup final. They made it in Celtic.
67.
67. Yeah. And I remember going to that, and we've got the underground from St George's Cross to Copeland Road, and Rangers won 1-0. Willie Henderson scored a header. And there was a guy, Roger Hine, was played up front, and Roger Hine, he probably doesn't realise this, but he played in the same brass band, I repeat, brass band, that my cousin Bobby did at Lark Hall. And so we saw the game. That was a big deal because they got to a major European final. And I remember my dad and I was only at primary school at the time. Yeah. And my dad and I went to get the subway at Copeland Road again, and it was like mobbed, Cessnock mobbed. I remember my dad saying, he said, do you fancy a wee walk? Okay. Yeah. I went, yeah. And we walked down to the ferry, that took you across to Anderson. And this time it's dark, and you're going across in a wee ferry, but there's loads of other Rangers fans there. Across to Anderson, and walked up Anderson, onto St George's Road and home that way. And it was the most fantastic memory of being out with my dad at a football game.
And it's strange though, because as a youngster, you remember those things because of your family and because of the attraction of the lights. And as you say, Davy Wilson, brilliant, but then you kind of, as you make your own way in your career, I think that I always look at the peak of your powers and you're in the middle of Rangers winning 9 in a row and you know all those guys.
Yeah, no, that was a very fortunate position to be in. I mean, I was able to enjoyed some great times with these guys. And I don't know if you know this or not, but because of Only an Excuse, we used to do a little bit. I would do an after dinner for Bob Relly at Rangers. He used to organise all the corporate stuff. But we also used to do, because Philip's a Celtic fan, I used to record a little Only Excuse that they would play at their sponsors' dinner as well. But we had some great times doing that. But also, when Walter became manager, before a big game that was at Hampden, like a big semi-final, whatever, and they would take the team down to oh God, what's it called again? Down past Troon.
Is it Seamill?
No, that was where Celtic used to go. Who was it used to go? It's now, Trump owns it now.
Oh, Turnberry.
Turnberry.
Yeah.
So he used to go down, to take the boys down to Turnberry, and he would phone up and say, you fancy coming down and doing a wee bit of Only Excuse for them? And bring Differ with you as well, right? So Philip would very kindly put together a wee sort of 10-minute slot, and I tell you, it's the hardest gig ever. Hardest gig. I've heard Andy Cameron talk about this. It's no wrong. You would go out, but you usually perform at about 5:30, 6 o'clock before they had their tea, and they'd be sitting down, and God help them, the likes of Ali and Durante and John Brown and Andy Goy, they would be laughing their socks off to try and make me feel more relaxed, because you'd have Mikolichenko down at the front looking at you as if you had horns. And so do a wee 10-minute bit, and then they would all head off, and me, Philip, Walter, Archie, the Doc, a few others, Jimmy Bell, we'd all have some tea, and it would end up just me, Philip, Walter and Archie talking about, could be our favourite teams, favourite concerts we've been to, favourite movies, talking for everything under the sun until about 2-3 o'clock in the morning.
I'm glad you said that, because I'm going to do a wee bit of that later on in the chat with
Oh,
you.
yeah,
I'll get 2 or 3 things. I'm desperate to hear your top 5s. But I mean, I'll look at it. City Lights, Naked Video. You've got Only an Excuse, and then Two Doors Down is magnificent as well. Rob C. Nisbet, Bob Servant. There's all those things that you've played your part in. And what was the starting point where you thought, I wanted something special, or fame suddenly kicked into you?
Pardon me. Well, there hasn't really sort of been a clear moment with regard to that. It's just a question of getting your foot in the door and starting, starting doing good work with good people.
Yeah.
Well, you just want to work with good people. That's the first and foremost. The thing that the change, if you like, was actually, it wasn't to do with television. It was to do with a theatre job.
Right.
And I get asked to go down. It was a Friday morning. I'd been on the go for a bit. I'd left drama college and I'd been working regularly in theatre and the odd TV job for about a couple of years. And I got a phone call to go down to Washington Street Arts Centre in Anderson. Bill Bryden was directing a play down there that he'd written, and it was starring Fulton Mackay and a whole host of others.
Wow.
And it was set in Clydebank in the Blitz, and Fulton was playing somebody with a reserved occupation. He was working the shipyards. He was a caulker, somebody who waterproofs the vessel. And the young lad that was playing his apprentice, he legged it on the Thursday, and they were looking for somebody to step in. And I went down to meet them and was very starstruck by these guys, but read a couple of scenes, and at the end of it, Bill Bryan said, "Do you want to do it?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Right, start Monday." And that was a turning point, because through that, I met loads of... Fulton was great with me. He was brilliant. Took me under his wing. As did another actor called Roy Hanlon, who was highly regarded up here.
Yeah.
And it was through Roy that I got my London agent.
Yeah. Did he give you good advice, Fulton? I mean, he was. I loved him in Porridge.
He didn't, but Roy did. I can tell you that story.
Yeah.
They used to talk. Bill would talk sort of football analogies all the time. He said, you cross the ball and Fulton will nod it in the back of the net. You feed him the the punchline, he'll take care of it. And I was struggling a wee bit because I was quite daunted by these guys. And I always remember Roy taking me aside under the premise of going over my lines, but it was really just to sort of give me an idea what to expect. And I remember him saying to me, he said, listen, he said, what Bill says is true, he said, it is all teamwork, and passing the ball about and hitting in the back of the net. He said, but let me just tell you, he said, see when the curtain goes up on that first night, every man for his fucking self. And I'll tell you, never a truer word spoke.
Yeah.
So it was a baptism of fire, but I learnt an awful lot from it. And that was the best advice I was in the earlier part of my career that I was given.
Yeah, and we're talking about teams and the teams that you've played with. I mean, I looked at that start. I mean, City Lights. I mean, we not too far away from me when I was brought up. Elaine C. Smith, which we all look on her with great pride at what she achieved. Gerard Kelly, Andy Gray, Dave Anderson.
Yeah. Ian McCall.
Good team, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was great. We did a pilot of it that the only ones that survived it were me, Kelly, and Dave. And then once we started doing naked video, when that transferred to television, it was decided that we'd resurrect it. Colin decided to resurrect it, and then he made other cast changes. So Andy was brought in, Elaine was brought in, which was brilliant. I mean, I was at drama college with Elaine.
Yeah.
So I've known her a long time.
You've had such a long association with her.
Yeah. I've known Elaine since about 1976.
Yeah, and she's a right good laugh.
Oh, she's great.
She's good fun.
Aye.
And of course multi-talented, like I was mentioning to you about yourself.
Well, she can sing, I can't. So. Not with this voice anyway.
Who did you enjoy with that crew? Who did you think, as you say yourself, the curtain's up, you've got to hit your mark, you want to do the best you can. Did you ever look at that crew and think, bloody hell, she's good or he's good, he makes me laugh?
Do you know, I don't think any of us thought that. We just were enjoying it all so much. It was very early on in our careers, and we didn't pause to think about these things. We just were getting fired into it.
Did you sense it was a hit? Did you feel that the comedy was there and you thought, this has got the makings?
Only when it went out, to be honest with you. Yeah, because we filmed it, and then when it went out, it's such a... I mean, I know the likes of Still Game has enjoyed huge success that's richly deserved, but at that time, the Scottish public hadn't really had a comedy since the likes of The Vital Spark.
Yeah.
And so when City Lights went out, it took off like we wouldn't believe. But I loved working with all these guys, and Andy Gray and I were particularly close. I was Andy's best man at his wedding, and we started out around about the same time, and we had such fun working together. Yeah,
and with that in mind, I mentioned all the people you'd worked with. Do you look back? Is it painful sometimes? Because there's a few of your good troops have sadly passed away who were really talented in that crew.
Yeah, well, it's you do think back. I think we're at an age now where that it happens with regularity.
Yeah.
So I mean, we're just recently. I've just finished filming in Two Doors Down, and one of the co-creators and writers from that, Simon Carlyle, passed away just after we finished filming. So, you're hit with these things all the time, and it's never. You never get used to it.
Yeah, and tough as it may seem, what was it about Andy that the two of you seemed to strike up a rapport? What was?
Well, I remember I was about to do one of the pantos at the Citizens Theatre, and a mate of mine, Ken Drury, said he was in it. I told him, he said I've just walked around the gate. He said, see the two of you'll get on like a house on fire, and he was right. We did, and we just had a great laugh together, and going out. We weren't married or anything like that. Introduced him to Victoria's nightclub. We just had great times together.
Yeah, and now, I mean, the ultimate, and I think there's so many things that you've done that are great credit, but for football fanatics, how did the whole only an excuse thing gather pace? How was it in the embryonic stage, and how did it really take off?
Well, we used to do a program called Naked Radio. Pardon me, we would record on a Friday at lunchtime at the Tron Theatre. And within the group, there's me, Elaine, Andy, Tony, Gregor. If there was any football gags around, Tony and I used to do them. If there's any mimicry as well, it was mostly me and Tony used to do that. And it was about the time that William McAvennie had been commissioned by BBC Scotland to do a documentary called Only a Game that covered the history of Scottish football.
Yeah.
And he had this very distinctive style in his delivery, which I used to mimic. As we were marking our scripts up in the Tron bar before, I would used to be doing stuff like that. Old Jimmy Murphy used to say, if you to pick a man to score a goal to save your life, there's only one man you would choose, and he would be the lawman. And I would go, well, you know, as you say, all this pish. and Philip and I used to have a right laugh doing it. And Philip ended up, encouraged by Colin, went to Stan Taylor, who was then the head of BBC Radio Scotland at the time, and he said, listen, Stan, he said, I've got an idea for a pilot of a programme. It's a spoof of Only a Game. I'm going to write it along with Ian Patterson, Bob Black, and I'm going to get Johnny to do it, and I'm thinking of asking Tony, do you think I could get the money for a pilot? And old Stan took a drag of his embassy tip and said, tell you what, Philip, he said, that sounds like a great idea, make the programme. No script, anything like that. Would never happen now. Would never happen now. You would need to supply a script, people would look over it, then they would send it back with change. I mean, it would just be a nightmare. Old Stan just saw there was a chance here picking something that was going to work, and he said, make the programme. And we recorded it over a weekend in BBC Scotland, Queen Margaret Drive. And when it went out, it was before Scotland played West Germany and Mexico. Yeah. And the guys at Radio Clyde actually did us a favour. They sent it down the line. So that's why there was all these bootleg copies of the programme flying about South America. So that's how it all started. Yeah. And there'd never been any programme. It was all Philip's idea. There'd never been a programme that had combined comedy and football.
Yeah. And I mean, apart from obviously the writing part of it and their ability to tap into the madness of our game, when you looked at it, how many characters were you doing then? Did you?
The very first tape, I think the only characters that were mimicked were, I did two. I did McAvennie and I did Dennis Law, and Tony did James Sanderson. Yeah. For Radio Clyde, and we did a spoof of a phone-in, which I was sent out. Philip goes, you go to that office away over there and press 9, that was the extension. So we actually did it as a phone-in.
James was one of the, I mean, obviously, working at Radio Clyde, but he was an unbelievable character, and great that you managed to take off him. But I look at the other guys you did as well. I mean, were they pissed off with you? I mean, I always heard that running story. Oh, Dennis isn't happy with him, but I thought to myself, flattery.
Yeah, Dennis was fine. Dennis was fine. Dennis invited me to his thing when he got the Freeman of the City of Aberdeen. So I spoke at his dinner. I asked to say a few words beforehand. No, Dennis was great. And he's very, very funny about it. Because do you want me to tell the story about it? I was actually across, I got tickets for the World Cup in Italy, 3 tickets for the Costa Rica game, Sweden game, and the one up in Turin against Brazil. But I had nobody to go with. Yeah. So I knew that Rabsy Nesbitt were doing a World Cup special. I said, look, can I go? Can I come with you? I'll pay my way, but so I can be with because I knew all the crew and all that. And Colin goes, go and see Susan, fix it up, it'll be fine. So we went out, fantastic time. We're sitting in this little place just in the outskirts of Genoa on the west side called Perlier, and lovely old hotel. It was just brilliant. Loved it. And but they played Costa Rica first.
We get bumped.
And they get beat 1-0. And at 6:30 the next morning, my door's going up. Because they had lined it up after the Costa Rica game, they would interview Andy Roxburgh and Alan McCoist. And of course, once they get beat, SFA pulled the plug on it. So I had to jump in and play the part of an SFA official. I thought it was my holidays. So did that and then ended up in a bit of time to spare before the next game. And I phoned Chick up. I know Chick was in last week. He goes, where are you? Where are you? I said, I'm over at this place called Pelly. He says, right, we'll meet you in the town. He says, I'll be with Jobson and the cameraman who I work with a lot. He said, we'll pick you up and you can spend a couple of days out with us. They were where the Scotland team were based, Rapallo, which was in the east side. So I went out and stayed with them for a couple of days. On the way out, I said to Chick, I said, is Dennis there? I said, did I get to meet Dennis? No, he said, no, he's away to do a report in Milan. He's not here. He said, but listen, he said, report in Scotland, what we report, can I interview you? I said, yeah, okay, that's fine. So I'm getting interviewed by Chick outside the swimming pool. And I could see all of a sudden, behind the camera, the crowd was getting bigger and bigger. I always remember Dougie Donnelly standing with this stupid smile on his face, looking, what the fuck's going on here? And I'm midway through a story, and next thing I know, I get a slap in the head. It's Dennis. You trying to make an enemy? You trying to make... But he was brilliant. He was great. And do you know the thing I always remember? See all the old Italian waiters in the hotel, because of his time in Torino, they treated him like a god.
Yeah.
They treated him like a god. They thought he was wonderful.
He was some player, but and a nice man. With the good fortune to luckily have him on the programme. But for a certain generation, he was a god for them.
Yeah.
The other great thing about it, I mean, apart from anything else, your friendship with Chick. I mean, Chick for me, I used to fight with him non-stop, by the way. We played football and battered each other. I mean,
Yeah.
just great fun. But you elevated him to another level, didn't you?
I thought.
I mean, you look for an Achilles heel and just done him in, but he took it in good grace.
Well, Chick's one of my very good friends, as you know, and he does take it in good grace, and he's been at the end of a lot of abuse but as a result of it. I mean, he tells the story himself. I don't know if he told it to you, but he used to have a sponsorship with White Craig Suzuki, right? And he was asked to do an advert for them, and he was up at Murricans when Dave, sadly no longer with us, but Dave had him in to do this advert for White Craig Suzuki, and they'd written a script, started it off, this is me, Chick Young. Stop, Chick, could you go again, please? No problem. This is me, Chick Young. Chick, yeah, can you just go again? And eventually he goes, what am I doing wrong? The guy goes, you haven't got the laugh right. Because he was only doing, and I used to do 3 instead. But, yeah, okay, no, he's a good guy.
Yeah, and was there a fear with some of your mates? Because, I mean, Walter, the only great, I mean, I have nothing but admiration for him because he was kind to me when we started this company. But he also, when I was a journalist going in and interviewing him, you got the cold stare.
Well, I bet,
If
yeah.
you got the cold stare, you knew you were in big trouble, And he just used to look at you, and then you were waiting for the scalp, and it was just one line, he'd boot you right out in the left field. But when you get to know them in a different sense, and especially for yourself, you would have sat down at meals with him if he's calling you up to do things for the boys.
Honestly,
I thought you got really well though. I mean,
well, he loved it.
Yeah.
He absolutely him, Fergie, Kenny, Graham. They all loved it. They were great about it all. But we've some times with Walter out in Turnberry. I remember saying to him before one game, but this time he'd signed Gascoigne, and I said to him, who rooms with him? He went, you kidding? I went, what? He said, nobody rooms with him. He said, nobody would room him. He said, does he sleep? He said, he'll be playing in the lifts all night. I went, you really telling you? So Wavy Fair, a couple of years later, I went to the loo, and as I came back, lucky it was the elevator going ping, the doors open, this guy going hello. And he was right. He was playing the lifts.
Yeah.
I know we had some great times down there, but you know they all took it in good stride, and I'm sure there are people in the. I know there are a couple of people whose noses were out of joint, but you know when you do a joke, you know. A good joke sometimes hurts somebody.
Absolutely.
But the thing about the programme was that we used to judge it by this. Philip and I used to judge it this way. If we did the gag and the person was to come in the door right after it, if we felt really awkward, we wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
Right? And given that the humour within a football dressing room is pretty cruel anyway, I think we were all right. And I think the other thing was all the guys appreciated the fact that we really did love the game.
Yeah.
And I think that got us off the hook
Absolutely.
a lot of the time.
I just thought it was a great tribute to the guys that you're doing. I mean, I have to tell you, well, two things quickly on that. You're talking about Walter. I mean, Walter he told me a great story when he came on the show, and he said he was walking down McCann Street, and Connolly said, Billy Connolly was walking past and chatted to him, and he says, and how do you handle Gascoigne? He says, you know, he says he's a genius. He says, unbelievable, you know, he says, but as you said, you know, a loose cannon. And Connolly says to him, just remember, he says, you have to accommodate genius because genius won't accommodate you.
Oh, brilliant.
And I thought it was just such a great line.
Fantastic
you know. And then the second part that stuck in my head was when you did Macca. I think it was even better because of your acting skills. I mean, it's great if you get the voice. Everybody loves it if you get the voice. But your acting skills on a pause, on a look, you know, the beaver sketch is just magnificent. You haven't actually said anything. I'm looking, I'm going, he's a fucking genius.
When we used to do the stage shows of it, we would always finish with Frank McAvennie because you couldn't top that. And I mean, I'd come out, you would work in such a way that I could get off stage, get the wig on, the teeth on, jacket on, and then on. And the laughs you'd stand for ages. Just look, if you could pick a good-looking girl in the front row, you're away. You get mileage out of that. It was honestly, it was such a gift.
Yeah,
it was great. He seemingly says to this day that he's never said "Where's the birds," but that is not true. Because I was telling this story recently. There used to be a wee guy who worked in the BBC called Andy Hutton, a big Celtic fan. Great wee guy, and Andy Hutton came in one day and said to me and Philip, he said, I was in Baird's Bar, it was some morning, it's like a Sunday morning or something like that, and he said, Frank McAvennie walked in, and he walked in, he looked about, and he said to the barman, he went, where's the birds? And we couldn't believe it. Maybe he can't remember saying it, but he definitely said it.
Johnny, you nailed him because amazingly, I used to many moons ago hang about with him when he was at St Mirren in red hair, and he used to come to Toledo Junction. Do you remember that place?
Toledo Junction, my goodness.
And he used to come in, and he was dangerous to say the least. And I think, you know, although he says Johnny made more money out of me than me being me.
The best thing he did was, because Bill McMurdo used to manage him for a while, and I think Bill put that in his head, you know, they're millionaires, are you? And, so we were doing, I always remember, it was my son had just been born, right? So this is about over 24 years ago. And I was doing a week at the King's Theatre, one-man show. And Frank went to the papers and got publicity saying he was going to boycott it. And it was the best publicity we could have had. We were sold out for a week. But I've seen him since. He's great. He's absolutely fine.
He loves the fact that you do him. As the success of it, and it grew even bigger and bigger, there must have been an immense pressure on you, because suddenly you're in that spot where everybody's settling down. They know they're going to be cuddling their family, absolutely eagerly anticipating that programme because it's got prime time. Was it 9 till 10 or 9 till...
No, it was Ricky's slot. It was quarter... It would either be 11 to half 11 or quarter past 11 to quarter to 12. That was the Ricky Fulton slot that we took over, because we used to initially play before him.
Yeah.
before that, and then by that time I think it was I Am Jolly.
That's some pressure.
Yeah, but listen, it's you want that kind of pressure. So yeah, there was I actually tried not to think about the pressure of it. I let Philip worry about that.
Yeah.
I just wanted to try and do the job and do it best I could. You know?
I wonder how you handle the flip side of it, though. And I'm not sure if anybody's ever said to you, but there was a point where people, you know, it's like there's a British tradition. Let's put somebody on a pedestal and then slowly let's take a hatchet to them eventually. And there was a point where I felt as if, rather unkindly, people were going, "Oh, it's old hat now."
Yeah.
You know, blah, blah, blah.
Well, do you know, to be fair, maybe we had got slightly, unwittingly become slightly complacent, but I think there was a point where that was the case. But I think maybe a lot of the criticism was you know, fair.
Did it hurt you?
Yeah, you don't, you know, I didn't let it bother me, but you do take it on board. You've got to, you know, you're only human. But the challenge then is to try and turn it around. And I think we managed to do that, because when we decided to call it a day, we'd got the whatever figures there were back to norm.
Yeah.
And but it was the right time to finish it. And I don't, you know, as much as I love doing it, and we'd great fun. The thing that used to drive us more than anything else was it was the most fantastic way to end your year.
Oh, absolutely.
You spend a week filming with all these guys you've been working with for about 20 odd years, having all trying to do the same thing, and I used to absolutely love it.
Yeah.
But it was the right time to stop, and I don't miss it.
No, it was almost like it's just one of those things that you had to watch. Everybody, and I have to be honest with you, some of them in our fraternity just were desperate to be involved in it. They wanted you to take them off, or they wanted to be acknowledged, because it was a sign of, oh, well, at least I've done something of notoriety.
Notoriety.
You know? I mean, I can remember one of the sketches, and my mate phoned me up and he went, "They've just taken the piss out of you for your commentary. There's a bed scene, you know, where the guy's listening to my commentary, and then he falls out of it." And I thought, there you are. I must have done something right. They're absolutely caning me. But the amount of people who would have loved for you taking them off. And by the way, how long did it last?
What, the programme?
20 years?
It was about over 20 years, yeah.
That's something to be proud of.
Yeah, oh no, absolutely. It was one of the longest running shows, you know, that for, well, I think in the UK. It'll fit in with the likes of the length of time, the likes of Blast the Summer Wine, when that kind of length. So, now, yeah.
Some people won't know this, but I mean, Let Us Pray. I watched that that movie. You've been in New Tricks, Garrow's Law. You've done movies. You've been in plays. You do stand up. You know, a one-man show.
One-man show. I've actually never done stand-up, but I've done one-man shows that are scripted by Philip.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. But with that in mind, what would you? Is there something that you would love to have done that you didn't do? You know, would you have liked to have been involved in more movies?
No. The Let Us Pray thing was great to do. It was a bit mental, but
What's mental?
well, I think we should explain it. It's a horror film.
Yes.
Well, what happened with that was I was filming Bob Servant, and one of the actors in it was called Pollyanna McIntosh, and Pollyanna was up for one of the leads in this horror movie to be filmed in Ireland, and her agent sent across the first ep of Bob Servant to the director, Brian O'Malley. And Brian O'Malley looked at Pollyanna's contribution to it, thought, she's great, we'll have her. And went, and who's that wee guy? It's Brian Cox's sidekick. And I met him in Edinburgh, and I got a part in it as well.
Yeah.
So it's just one of these things.
Listen, it's another fair
filming in where was that again? We filmed. Well, it was in Ireland for about 3 weeks, but it was great fun.
Yeah. And you mentioned Brian Cox here.
Yeah.
It's been a joy to work with him.
Oh, it's brilliant. I've actually, one of the few things I can tell you about what's coming up, we've recently recorded Bob Servant plays for Radio 4, 2 plays that go out over Christmas and New Year, which I recorded with him in end of July this year. So that's about to go out. But no, working with him was great.
Yeah, I mean, there are some people who just take that next step onto another level where globally people think,
well,
you sense that with him.
Yeah, I mean, he's fantastic. He's like all the really great ones are very generous. You know, they're not paranoid about you maybe doing better than them or anything like that.
Yeah.
They want you to be the best you can. And I'll give you an example of how good he is. I'd never met him before. I auditioned for this part, so I didn't know. I didn't realise at the time a lot of people were up for this, right? A lot of people. And the character of Frank was actually meant to be ages with Bob. And I'm 10 years younger than Brian.
Yeah.
But my agent said, no, you got to see him, you got to see Johnny for this. So I went along and I knew the people I was auditioning in front of. I knew the director, knew the producer, I knew the cast woman. And I got on well with them all. So I was very relaxed for the audition. I came away thinking, I'm in with a shout here. Yeah. If I had known the background of who was all up for it and all like that, I'd have been like a gibbering wreck. But I ended up getting it. And we were all sat. It was quite a big thing at the time because it was a BBC Three thing. Yeah. And all the heads were up from London. So there were 50 folk all there. I always remember he came in, we'd never met before. And we had to do a read-through of about 2 or 3 of the scripts. And our names were beside Jonathan Watson, Frank, Brian Cox, Bob. And he came up and he went, hi, I'm Brian. I went, I'm Johnny. And sat down, and they were reading it. And so we read the first script, and it went down really well. And I always remember, and he didn't need to do this. He leaned across and he said to me, hey, you and me, we're going to have some fun. And right away, all the pressure of working with somebody like that just goes.
Yeah.
And he was fantastic.
What a nice line, though.
Yeah, brilliant. And it's 12 years since we've done Bob. Do you know, me, Brian and Neil, well, I've worked with Neil a few times since, but we all keep in touch. I saw Neil on Friday there. We still all keep in touch, and, you know, it was a great job to do.
Yeah. Before we finish, there's a few quick-fire questions I want to ask you, but we've got to talk about Two Doors Down, because the success, you know, people might think it's all seamless, all these things. You've got to graft to get there, as you say, you know, get offered it, sometimes know that it's there, go and audition for it. Two Doors Down, with some of your old muckers who are there, and it's symptomatic of the successes you've had in the fact that people can relate to them. You know, you've done characters and people can relate to them through the comedy sketches. This one is slightly different. It's not quite Ned's, his family. It's a kind of a well-to-do. They're half decent. They've got a wee bit of money.
Yeah.
You know?
It's, well, with the likes of that program in particular, it is down to the writing.
Yeah.
And it is a good cast, but the main thing is the writing, and that's because the characters are so clearly defined. That's what helps people relate to them, and that's why we've been very fortunate to enjoy a sort of network success.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a story. I mean, I talk about network success. This is absolutely true. I did, about 3 years ago, I did the last series of Doctor Who.
Yeah.
And as a result, you get invited to the conventions. And about a year and a half ago, pardon me, about a year and a half ago, I got invited to one of the massive ones in America, in LA, called Gallifrey 1. And I was sitting at the desk signing autographs with Sylvester McCoy, who I'd worked with. I'd done a play at the Tron with Sylvester many years ago. So two of us know each other. So we're sitting signing autographs. And this guy comes up to me. And he's dressed head to toe as Jodie Whittaker, but with a beard. He's about 6'3", this guy. And I go, hi, how you doing? And he goes, he started chatting away to me, thanking me about the way I played the Centaurs and all that kind of stuff. And eventually he goes, he said, I wonder if you'd sign this for me. And he went to his pocket and he brought out a box set of Two Doors Down.
You've made it.
I
Brilliant.
said, you're fucking kidding me. He went, no, he said, I'll watch it in BritBox. So
That's brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's a good cast as well, isn't it? I mean, obviously, you know, Alec Norton, Elaine C. Smith, and Grado,
Grado.
who I think's a talented boy.
Grado is fantastic in it. Grado's a very talented actor, and I love working with him. I absolutely love working with him. And I love his innocence as well. The highest compliment I can pay Grado is he reminds me, and Elaine and I have talked about this, it reminds us of a young Gregor Fisher.
Wow, that's high praise.
Yeah, he's got that kind of look and he's got that kind of quality. He's brilliant. However, when we do these big scenes in Two Doors Down, like 10, 12 pages long, Elaine and I usually have the bulk of the dialogue, right? Yeah. So when you're about to do a big scene, whether it's the wide or close-ups, or whatever, you've really got to focus and concentrate. You know, you've really got to get your head in the right place, and because although you can stop and all that and start again, you want to get a good run at it and get the feel of it right. And very often, if it's in Beth and Eric's, and I'm sitting down, on the odd occasion I'm sitting down, I'm usually sat down next to Grado. And we'll be sitting there, we'll be getting all ready, getting our heads on gear, all the makeup checks will be done, costume and like that. Camera's about to turn over, he'll give me a wee nudge like that, he'll go, hey, going to date Graham Souness. And he's like, you shut up. So, yeah, he's a good guy.
And the good thing about it, it's a grower, that programme. Is it fair to say that? Because I think critics were a wee bit unkind to it in season 1 and season 2.
Oh, were they?
And
I didn't know that.
I've read some stuff and I thought to myself, well, maybe they just don't get it. And then slowly but surely, people really, really warmed to it.
Well, I did it didn't start off as a series. There was no plans to do a series.
Yeah.
It started as a one-off. And it was because somebody, a big name within the BBC, had let them down, because all of a sudden the slot appeared between 9 and 10 p.m. on the 31st of December on BBC One.
Wow.
And they had nothing to film.
Yeah.
And I get a call on the Wednesday to go down and meet Simon, the producer, and the director on the Thursday, and the contracts were sorted on the Friday. It was that quick. And we shot it in 10 days, 8 o'clock in the morning to 8 o'clock in the night, 10 days solid. And it was mental. We filmed in this wee house in Paisley.
Yeah.
And it went out, and that was about the first time I was involved in something that you could see the effect of social media taking grip. And it went a bomb. I mean, if there were reservations with some of the critics, I wasn't aware of it, because it really took off. And then it took about a year and a half, just under that, for the series to start.
Yeah, but did you think it had the broader appeal? You know, because it's so good, because, you know, it's like the early 70s, everybody loved Connolly because suddenly it was one of us that you thought, instead of all these other comedians, suddenly there's a Scot who's flying the flag for us nationally.
Yeah.
And people look and say, oh, this is brilliant. Did you think it had a broader appeal? Did you think it would go further than Shores?
We did, because we knew right away. You can tell by the figures, but you used to get it a wee bit with Naked Video, but any time I had to go down south or down to Wales or whatever, I couldn't believe the reaction of people recognising me.
Yeah, brilliant.
To that extent. So, but we knew that it done well in the network from the figures as well. So, because it's to do with identifying with the characters, and because they were clearly drawn by Gregor and Simon, that was a huge advantage for us.
Is there something that you haven't done yet that you'd like to do?
I don't know yet. I don't know. I'm fortunate, I'm kept fairly busy doing, I've got a good start to the year doing stuff that I haven't done before. So, no, I'll keep quiet now and just let it keep on going.
How often do you go outside your comfort zone, though, or do you tend to
Oh, I got it. Yeah. I'll go it. I'll do. I did. I always try and do a piece of theatre every year to keep my hand in with that. So I did a one-man play in February last year, which we're in talks to bring back for the festival and a tour beyond. And that's coming out of your comfort zone. You know, there's no safety net there. So, but it's written by Douglas Maxwell. He's a top Scottish playwright, and to do something like that is exciting. So yeah.
Okay, I've thoroughly enjoyed this. It's been a real hoot for me because I realise that you're multi-talented and I love a lot of the work that you do. So, and I'm glad you said that you sit with Walter and all the people that I really like, and you do the 5 favourites. So here we go.
All right, okay.
I'm going to extend it now because you've done your movies. So give me your 5 favourite movies of all time, and I know it'll change.
Right. So this, I'm going to give you my 5. There's no particular order, and no particular order, and some of them might not, you might not think they're not that great, but these are my 5 favourite movies. So The Godfather,
right?
Part 1 and Part 2,
right?
Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
I'm giving Godfather 1 and Part 2. I'm just going to make that one.
Okay, right.
Okay.
Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
Yep.
Where Eagles Dare, Zulu, and Midnight Run. There you go.
Right, there's the 5. Okay, your 5 favourite comedians.
5, oh God. Billy Connolly.
Yep.
Les Dawson.
Right.
When I was a wee boy, I used to laugh like a drain. Freddie Starr.
Yep.
And I'm going to bring in another one who might be politically correct. Bernard Manning.
Right.
And there's a guy that my son introduced me to that does make me laugh like a drain called Bill Burr.
The American. I love him.
guy.
Yeah. New Yorker, I think he is.
Is he?
Funny.
He's not Boston.
Could be. Ginger haired boy.
Well, he's shaved it now.
Shaved it now.
He's brilliant.
He's phenomenal.
Yeah, he's a good actor as well, actually.
Not exactly one you'd invite to a ladies' lunch, but really, really good.
I can actually, do you know something? Actually, on that note, I'm going to put in John Gagan in that one.
Well, that would be the ultimate. I mean, that's a great tribute.
Take
Manning.
Take Manning out and put in John Gagan, because I don't think John realises how talented he is. I think he has gone beyond an after-dinner speaker, and I think he's a wonderfully talented comedian. His observations, his delivery, his timing is immaculate, and I love watching him.
What a brilliant tribute. He's coming on the show shortly.
Oh, brilliant,
I'm
brilliant.
really looking forward to that. Okay, your 5 favourite players of all time. And you've got to have seen them.
Yes. In no particular order. Now, this is, there's so many. I mean, right, I'm
You're going to get phone calls from people going,
I know,
I
what
can't
about
believe
me,
I'm not
man?
fucking
I know,
in,
I know.
by the way.
And I've seen them.
You've seen them.
Pelé,
Brilliant.
Graham Souness,
Yep.
Ken Dalglish. Got to see it. There's one that's, there's 2 I love, but I didn't. He was playing for Ajax against Rangers, and I had the flu and I couldn't go.
Right.
Because I would have included Cruyff and Neyskens.
Yep.
So where have I got? I've got Pelé,
You've got Souness, you've got Dalglish.
Souness, Dalglish, Davy Cooper,
Great entry.
and he's my pal, Ian Durant.
Brilliant choice.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because he was, I think he was a fantastic player.
Absolutely. So the last one to finish, as I look at the clock, perfect timing.
Go.
You're in a car, you're going to cross the west coast of America, you're allowed 3 people, living or dead, famous. Who do you have in the car with you driving? You're driving.
God, what a question. Who would I have? So do I need to know them?
No, it's people you think, oh, that would be great in a car. This is going to be brilliant. They're going to tell me some stories I want to hear about them. You know, male, female, in the car, driving, could have the roof down, bit of Don Henley, Boys of Summer.
Don Henley, there you go. I tell you what, I'm going to go for Richard Burton and Elizabeth Taylor.
Right, so you're having a full scaler at some point.
And who will I go for the third one? Mel Brooks.
Fantastic choice.
There you go.
So, velvet voice, stunning looking, talented woman in Elizabeth Taylor.
I always remember her photographing the Regano in the Evening Times when she visited there. Just all boarded up now. It's so sad.
Yeah, absolutely. Jonathan Watson, I can only thank you. It's been absolutely brilliant chatting to you. It was easy sauntering through your career because it's just littered with just brilliant programmes and highlighting your talent. Thanks for joining me.
Oh, thank you very much, Pete. That's very kind of you.
Top man.
Appreciate that. Thanks.